They say when recording podcasts, you're meant to record 5 and then release the 6th. By then, you have a general understanding of the flow and format of your podcast, and you're just ready to release it into the world. I have not done this, so I apologize for how rough this may seem, but I promise with time I will get better at this. Please be patient. Thanks for tuning in. Close your eyes and open your mind. I'm your host Michael, and welcome to This Strange Void. Today we will be exploring where I live and visiting in and around Brisbane, Australia. Let's get started, shall we? If you had walked down Gilchrist Avenue in the Brisbane suburb of Hurston any night during a hot week in November 1965, you may have thought you'd stumbled upon a political revolution or pagan religious ceremony. The streets would have been jammed with cars, including a dozen police vehicles. Victoria Park on the southern side of the street, the adjacent playing fields and golf course would have been filled with up to 5,000 people milling about. You would have seen the whole spectacle lit by thousands of torches, car headlights, television lights, and the hellfire glow of burning oil. This was not, however, a revolution or a religious riot. It was Brisbane's reaction to a reported sighting of the ghost of Victoria Park. On the previous Saturday evening, two schoolboys walking through the pedestrian underpass beneath the railway lines that run through the park claimed that a ghost had come out of the stone wall of the underpass and chased them. They described it as a misty, white, bluish thing that looked like a human torso with no head, no arms, and no legs below the knee. One of the boys had to be treated for shock at nearby Royal Brisbane Hospital. All of this was reported in the next morning's newspaper, and Brisbane was instantly plunged into the grip of ghost mania. Every night thereafter, for more than a week, huge crowds gathered in the park and surrounding area in the hopes of catching a glimpse of the ghost. There were families with babies and wide-eyed children in pajamas, men dressed in singlets, shorts and thongs, men in dinner jackets, women in toweling muumuus, and women in fashionable cocktail dresses. There were young girls in short shorts and youths with long hair and leather jackets. Picnic hampers, thermos flasks, and bottled beer were brought along. Meat pie and ice cream vendors did a roaring trade. And how did they all behave? Well, the majority treated the whole thing as a family outing and, apart from wandering too close to the railway tracks, behaved themselves tolerably well. But at around 10 each night, when the families had gone home, disappointed at not having seen the ghost, gangs of youth took over. Drunken brawls were nightly events. Police cars were stoned, trains were belted with rocks, smashing carriage windows and showering terrified passengers with glass. Trees and fences were destroyed, fires were lit wherever fuel could be uprooted or torn down. One maniac brought a flamethrower to roast the ghost, he said, and others threw crackers and let off marine flares. Until motor oil was poured over it and set alight, the lake was used as a dunking pond. Police reinforcements were brought in, and many of the thrill-seekers woke up the next morning in jail. Grandparents tut-tutted but admitted the scenes were reminiscent of 1903 when the ghost appeared for the first time. Parents did the same but added that the behaviour had not been nearly so bad in 1922 and 1932 when they turned out for the ghost's second and third appearances. This ghost does seem to bring out the worst in people, a city council spokesman said. Thank goodness it doesn't turn on a really terrifying show and panic the crowds. People would die in a rush to escape. As it was, dozens suffered minor injuries treated at the field station by St. John's ambulance volunteers. And what of the ghost? Was there one? Is there one? Well, observers in 1903 described it as looking like a 3-meter tall nun in a grey habit. In 1922 and 1932, it was described simply as a shimmering grey form. If we accept the schoolboy's description in 1965 and assume it is the same spectre, then it seems she, he, or it has lost some bits between 1903 and 1965. Two theories were put forward in 1965 to identify the spectre. One was that it was the ghost of a vagrant named Walter Hall who had been beaten to death with a bottle and his body dumped in the lake in 1952. The other suggested it was the Swede Carl David Denas, who was a suspect in a brutal murder case in 1960 and who committed suicide by throwing himself in front of a train near the underpass. Neither theory takes into account the earlier sightings of the ghost. All has been quiet in Victoria Park for the past 30 plus years though. Until replaced by Boggo Road Jail in 1932, St Helena Island in Moreton Bay was Brisbane's main prison. At some time after its closure, one of the cottages from the old penal settlement was relocated to Peel Island, another spot with a gruesome history, a one-time leper colony, and from there to Dunwich on North Stradbroke Island. At Dunwich, it was named Marie Rose Cottage and served as living quarters for ambulance officers. Its innocuous appearance, however, was deceiving. Something evil out of the building's past had travelled with it. One of the ambulance officers still feels horror when he tells his encounter with a demon-like creature in the bedroom of the cottage in 1988. The memory of the creature's face still haunts him. It had deeply furrowed forehead, a sinister mouth with broken, filthy teeth and glowing orange eyes. From its mouth came a soft hissing sound and a putrid smell. It took all the ambulance officer's strength, mental and physical, to escape its powerful grip, and the struggle left him badly bruised. The stench remained in the room for 2 days. Too many others have had similar experiences in and around this innocent-looking building to dismiss their stories. Whatever the abomination is, it is not human, and it never was. Marie Rose Cottage was demolished a couple of years ago to make way for a new ambulance station, and the demon has not been seen since, but perhaps it's too early to consign it to the history books just yet.
Brisbane's notorious Boggo Road Jail boasts the ghost of a young farm labourer named Ernest Austin, who was convicted of murder and executed on the jail gallows of 22nd of September 1922. From then until the jail was closed nearly 80 years later, prisoners claimed to see Austin's ghost near a wall in A Wing where the gallows used to stand. Senior officers always denied the stories, but according to the press, a guard made a note in the official log that he had seen a formless white mass hovering above an exercise yard one night. The guard had no idea what it was that he had observed, but it defied physical explanation and frightened him badly. Given the grim history of the establishment, it should not surprise anyone that strange and disturbing phenomena linger there.
Royal Brisbane Hospital at Hurston is home to quite a number of spirits. According to legend and newspaper reports, one story relates to a theatre sister who was supposedly murdered many years ago, and whose uniform figure, complete with stiff triangular veil, has often been seen through frosted glass windows. A mischievous spirit resides in one ward which was once a prison ward, pushing buzzers in the middle of the night and luring nurses into darkened rooms. Best known of the hospital's ghosts is a female figure dressed in white who keeps vigil beside patients' beds. Staff have often been asked by patients to thank the kind lady who sat by them during the night. Nurses, orderlies, kitchen staff and cleaners have seen her, but most are reluctant to talk about their experiences. No one knows who she is or who she was in life, but clearly she brings comfort, not fear, to those who encounter her. Some people also believe that the Adelaide Billings ward at the adjacent Royal Children's Hospital was haunted by the nurse for whom it was named after. Matron Billings was greatly loved in her lifetime, and after her death, the hospital authorities decided to honour her memory by naming a ward after her. But it seems she was not content to be remembered in name only. According to one story, a male nurse found her busily filling a barrette from a tap one night. He thought her face was vaguely familiar, but did not recognize her at the time. The nurse thought no more about it until he glanced at a photo of Matron Billings hanging in the lobby, and the realization that he had just seen a ghost struck him. On many other occasions, she was observed touring the ward at night, checking on her tiny patients, stroking foreheads, tucking in bedclothes, and straightening pillows. A few years ago, the Adelaide Billings ward was demolished to make way for the new buildings. Hopefully the tireless matron is now having a well-deserved rest. I myself haven't seen anything haunting near the hospital apart from a middle-aged man who was walking down the street fighting dangerous beings that only he could see.
So for our last destination, Toowong Cemetery, there are two stories here. One of a beautiful woman that's seen roaming between Avenue 12 and Avenue 13, who sometimes disturbingly shows her pointed teeth. Or either the spooky hill that drags cars against gravity. To put one part of the legend to bed, there is no Avenue 13, but there is an Avenue 12, and a very pretty part of the cemetery. So the first story is that there's a double grave at the top of Avenue 12, the final resting place of two sisters killed in a car accident. If you park your car at the bottom of the hill and put it in neutral, it will roll uphill, being pulled by the dead sisters. What a horrible way to spend the rest of your life. The second story is that there's a pretty lady with dark hair wearing early 19th century clothing who wanders around the bottom of Avenue 12. Allegedly, she appeared not long after a grave was exhumed, and the interred resident was found to be perfectly preserved, but displaying entrancingly long fangs. It's all good, every city needs, few ghost stories to, tell around, the late night campfires and whatnot, but none of these stories came into fruition, except for the last 25 years when people started making money out of the cemetery tours.
So this is one of the places that I have actually been ghost hunting, roaming in the dark, if you may.
The place at night does really feel uninviting, kind of hauntingly beautiful at the same time though. Through a lot of the night there were shadows fluttering through the graves, kind of felt like you were being watched and followed the whole night. It kind of took a weird turn when someone pulled out a Ouija board and was about to place the board on top of a grave to play, and I had this gross feeling in the pit of my stomach, and then all of a sudden in my ear I heard, "Don't do that." And you can probably guess that I did not want to do that, so I suggested so, and we ended up just going for more of a walk through the graveyard instead.
Thank you for tuning in today. Hopefully in time I get a better grasp of everything. I haven't really done anything like this before, so it's somewhat daunting, but I really want to overcome that, I guess. I've listened to these type of podcasts for years, and I've kind of felt comfort in knowing that people have similar experiences, whilst also learning about other people's experiences and just strange things about this world. It's crazy. And if I can bring anyone comfort, that's kind of just job well done, hey? Couldn't ask for anything more. So thank you once again. Please rate, review, share it around. Just even word of mouth is amazing. Contact me via email at thisstrangevoid@gmail.com. We'll be going out today with some sweet beats by my boy Moso. Links in description to all of his socials and stuff. Check him out, give him a follow. Thank you again. Catch ya.